I wondered what it would be like to try and beat Fallout New Vegas as a proper gentleman, with a cane, specifically the White Glove Society's signature weapon, the dress cane. So, can you beat Fallout New Vegas using only the dress cane? Let's find out. I chose the appropriate name, Meet the Happy and Fancy Mr. Cannibal. Then I put some effort into crafting the perfect fancy face. My stats were strategically distributed to suit high society. Strength 8, Perception 1, Endurance 5, Charisma 4, Intelligence 8, Luck and Agility, those are at 7. I carefully chose my answers. And now my skills. Melee weapons because of the dress cane, of course. Speech so that I may walk among liars and the intelligence alike. And finally unarmed for those delightful extra perks. My starting perks were good-natured and built to destroy, a refined gentleman with a touch of chaos. I left the office as fast as possible and made my way to the strip through the usual path. My only limitation for this run was my weapon. I could only kill enemies with a cane. As for my outfit, even though I didn't set a strict rule, I mostly wore casual clothes and a bathing suit for most of the run, only changing near the end. Anyway, I decided to take the Mechanic Express into the strip. Once there, I was a bit rude by ignoring Victor, and then I headed straight for the Ultra Lux, the fanciest place in all the Mojave. I politely let the manservant take my weapons, of which I had none, and dropped a quick save. At this point, I planned to steal the dress cane from one of them. You see, these folks are the only ones who have access to such a glorious stick. At least that I know of. I was so happy when I managed to steal the cane on my first try. Yay! I was pretty happy. Here you can see the moveset for the cane. It's pretty similar to most melee weapons in the game. After that, I returned to Good Springs, where I tried giving the bottles a shot with my cane, but it didn't work. Once inside the saloon, I realized how very little manners Joe Cobb had. He had to go, but since I was there, I also fixed the broken radio like a proper gentleman, before meeting Ringo.
Say no more.
After offering to help, I proceeded to recruit all the available allies around town. When I reached level 2, I put a single point into speech and the rest into melee weapons. Here I chose the Swift Learner perk. And because I didn't meet the necessary bar skill to recruit chat, I decided to buy a magazine to do so. I found a nice outfit in the doctor's closet and the battle began. Here you can see the power of my cane. I know, they were the first enemies you're supposed to kill, so they were easy. But I was still dealing a fair amount of damage, and I hadn't even used any camps. Well, with that out of the way, I made my way to prison, take down any convicts I came across. I even picked up a new outfit along the way. The criminals at the saloon were pretty simple. Just use your cane, swing hard, and you're good to go. When I rescued Beagle, I feared that maybe, just maybe, the NCR could turn this place into a polite society. I safely made my way to the Mojave outpost and added +3 points into unarmed. I didn't meet the bar requirement to convince them to send troops to Pren, but here's the workaround. All we need to do is complete Ranger Jackson's quest by eliminating all the ants. Hey, I even met an ant stone, a noble adversary indeed. I returned to report that the ants were gone, and that knight had no excuse not to send help. Oh, and I also accepted Ghost's quest. Back in print, I gave control to the NCR before hitting level 4. My points went to melee weapons and unarmed, and since I was destined to become a man of refined tastes, I went with the cannibal perk. Cheers. On the road to Nipton, I came across a dramatic duel between two travelers. Naturally, I stepped back and let the dust settle. After all, a gentleman knows when to observe. I decided the victor would earn the honor of buying me a happy meal. Once in Nipton, I met some philosophically interesting folks in animal costumes. Their belief system seemed to align with certain dietary interests, so I agreed to spread their culinary ideology. Novak was a promising place, so full of energy, and because of that, I said I'd take care of the ghouls at the test site. You see, I had nothing against Jason. He was polite and wore a fancy suit. That's a green light in my book, not like the sex skills for a human they keep as a pet. By the way, I have been collecting scrap metal. It will come in handy when the time is right. But for now, it was time to deal with the not so polite super mutants downstairs. Davison was the only one of his kind who actually gave me trouble. He was taking so much damage, but it all worked out in the end. With the mutants gone, I headed back upstairs and helped Jason fix the rockets. I easily stole the first item from an old lady, found the second, and returned to the test site. There I informed Chris, that he was pathetic. Then we launched the rockets. At level 6, I increased melee to 80, speed to 45, and unarmed to 40. And Bloody Mess was the perk of choice here. I grabbed a new hat and stopped for lunch before heading to Nelson. The folks at Nelson were eager to expand their school of philosophy, but sadly the ones at Farland Hope, well, they didn't exactly have an open mind, so it was up to me to help them broaden their horizons. But before that, I had one stop. Well, two actually. First, I grabbed the snow globe at Riverdale. Then, I made my way to Boulder City to assist the Great Cons. Thanks to my speech, I convinced Jessup to release the hostages. And did the same when I reminded the NCR that he still had honor. I'm not sure what that was. At level 8, I maxed out melee weapons, raised unarmed to 45, and selected the mighty Super Slam perk. Then it was time to go back to Farland Hope. I waited until night so the soldiers would be asleep. And here's where things got strange. Can anyone explain to me how stealth works in this game? I eliminated the targets without alerting a single soul. Sure, I did take some mentats and medax for, well, reasons, but still, it doesn't make any sense. Maybe it was my melee at 100%, or the fact that my cane was in excellent condition. Either way, I even showed you all my stats at the moment because I genuinely have no idea. Please do enlighten me. Anyway, when I got back to that sea, he presented me with his blade. I politely accepted, then I dropped it at his feet 2 seconds later. It was finally time to head to Freeside. First thing I did was to grab the snow globe at the fort. Then I heard there was a king in town. So I decided to pay him a visit. You know, show my respects. His quest? Well, basically go from point A to point B, return to point A, rinse and repeat. First up was Oris and his scam escort service. Then I investigated the man attacked by the NCR, and eventually discovered they were handing out supplies only to their own citizens. So someone was sent to chat with the king, someone didn't even know he existed, yada yada. But before I could go clean up Princess Mess, I got a glimpse of Rex trying to learn how to fly. I defused the situation and returned for my reward. I wasn't planning to side with the NCR for this one, so I used my favor to officially join the Kings. And then it was time to meet Mr. House. I gave in my opinion on his city, and we got down to business, which in his eyes meant Go murder the leader of the chairman, cold blood. Okay. Luckily, I had more than enough speech skill and a solid evidence to convince Swank to let me in with my gear and send Benny straight up to his room. At level 10, I invested all my points to unarmed and select the elegant and effective confirmed bachelor perk for that lovely bonus damage. Up there in Benny's suite, I didn't waste a thing. That's right, I kept his suit, finders keepers, I suppose. Once I got the furry medallion, I figured it was best to get the boomers out of the way. So, here's what I did. I turned on the power generator, cleared out the ants, and listened to Pete's story before taking the test. Now, I don't know if you remember, but at the beginning I mentioned collecting scrap metal. Well, this was that moment. I wasn't about to waste time on repetitive tasks like fixing the arrays or caring for Jack's love life. Instead, I handed all the scrap metal I'd gathered to Jack. Each piece increased reputation for the boomers, and as you can see, I donated quite a lot. Enough to be idolized, in fact. After discovering their dreams and retrieving the bomber, I returned to Pearl with the good news. My last stop before heading back to Lucky 38 was repairing my cane, with a bit of help from Knight. Back at the Lucky 38, I sold all my snow globes, then sat down with my pre-award dinner. Delicious. And because members of high society have a tendency for personal enhancement, I visited the clinic and got my first and known implant of the run, the subdermal armor. Afterward, I caught the boat at Cotwood Cove to meet Caesar, who was very excited about my good deeds. And because of that, he promoted me to janitor. And my first assignment was to get rid of anything inside the bunker down at the weather station. Thankfully, the machines down there didn't deal as much damage as they had in my previous run. But sadly, just like before, I could use a melee weapon to destroy the generator. Bummer. So instead, I upgrade the Securitrons. It's very unlikely they'd suddenly become self-aware and take over. Right? When I reached level 12, I distributed my points into speech and unarmed, and chose the Unstoppable Force perk to break through enemy defenses. I returned to Caesar, and since I'd already killed Mr. House, there was no reason to go back to the Lucky 38. Instead, he sent me to forge an alliance with the Boomers. But first, I made a quick stop at Fallen Hope to grab some NCR armor. You know, for later. Hey Pearl, wanna trade guns for slaves?
Of course, my child.
Caesar, she said yes. Next on the agenda, securing the White Glove Society. At Ultralux, I informed Mortimer that we had the same nutritionist. Nice. Then he mentioned his manservant had grabbed the wrong entrée. I guess that's how you say it. Supposed to be a real estate agent, but ended up with a farmer, and it was up to me to fix it. Before heading to the kitchen, I fast traveled back to Novak, where I knew just the person to help prepare a refined dish. Boom! First though, I had to help him track down who sold his wife. I didn't really care, so I lured the first unlucky soul I could find to the front of the dino. Boone handled the rest. After that, I returned, I lied to his face using speech, and I even convinced him to join me. Back at the Ultralux, I asked Mortimer if Boone could be added to the menu. He agreed. Once I got Boone into the freezer and reunited Ted with his father, there was only one thing left to do: wait for dinner to be served.
I know what a terrible sacrifice this must have been for you.
And with the White Glove Society back to its roots, and agreeing to side with the Legion, my job there was done. I returned to the fort, and next up was the Brotherhood of Steel. I followed my usual route, playing my part, until I was accepted inside. And then things got confusing again, especially regarding stealth. As you can see, I managed to steal the keycard from McNamara. So far so good. Okay, but I failed while trying to steal Paladin Harden's keycard. Okay, fair enough. So I figured, I had no choice but to kill him in stealth mode. And man, again beating someone in power armor? How does that even work? Anyway, I stole the last key card and initiated the self-destruction protocol, and I used turbo to avoid damage. Before returning to the fort, I stopped by the Faller's base. See, normally if you want to recruit to arcade, you need things like low intelligence, high speech, or the confirmed bachelor perk. But if your reputation with the Legion is too high, arcade won't join you. Here's the workaround. While signing with the Legion, just wear NCR armor. Doing so will fool the game into thinking you are NCR, or full arcade. Then go through the usual recruiting dialogue, and once arcade is on your team, just take off the armor, and you won't leave. Neat. When I got back home and informed Caesar that the team men were gone, he gently asked me to join him in his tent. There, he mistook me for a doctor, and started mumbling about the random symptoms, asking for a diagnosis. But in that moment, I had a spark of enlightenment. The option appeared to offer someone else's help. Let's say a doctor who helps everyone except the Legion. It's a fair price. At level 14, I maxed out unarmed and selected the piercing strike perk. My final assignment before the final battle over them was to assassinate the president. Simple enough, right? Wrong. The NCR hated me. They wouldn't even let me breathe the same air as the president. So before meeting my contact, I dropped a quick save, put on my NCR armor, and snuck into Heroes 1. My plan was to talk to Fantastic, and start that lucky old Sun quest. Things got a little hairy with the robots in there, but with enough turbo and steam packs, I managed to reroute power to McCarran and the strip, and doing so, the NCR started to accept me. Okay, back to the presidential assassination attempt. You'd think the NCR would like me now, right? Yeah, not quite. Good to know I waste time and supplies. The second attempt, I used a stealth boy and tried to do it quickly. Here's how that went. I tried hiding in that cozy little corner, completely forgetting the president would be heavily guarded. While escaping, the NCR soldiers seemed to lose what little will they had left. They didn't even chase me very far. If you wonder how I took so little damage, credit goes to my subdermal armor and the New Vegas clinic, a healthy dose of steam pack, and a splash of Med-X. Before returning to the fort, I stocked up supplies from the followers and grabbed a few weapon repair kits from the boomers. By the way, I didn't even know they could sell those things. I had to look up on the wiki. Now, the final battle could finally begin. The legate explained his plan to me, and he also said how little he cared about defending that dam. From that point on, I was suited up in full Legion armor. The NCR soldiers got on the bridge were laughably weak. Only the ones with sniper rifles dealt any real damage. And yes, I was collecting dog tags for reasons I haven't entirely figured out. I asked the Centurion to keep the battle down at the power plant, since I had the upper level covered. When I went down there, the veteran rangers were the only ones who could put up a fight. But even they fell one by one to the might of my cane. At last, I met General Oliver. I even tried to be civil, a gentleman first, always. Tried to convince him to flee, but alas, I did not have enough speech for that. So back to candy-based persuasion. There was even a mini boss fight against a sniper ranger. That's pretty cool. And then, finally, General Oliver and his goons. At that point, I was probably riding high on every cam known to mankind. The general himself, honestly, pretty easy. The initial soldiers in power armor though, yeah, those guys hit hard. I almost died, I gotta admit. But in the end, my trusty cane proved itself once again. It's a weapon, I really should use it more often. Oh, and I leveled up too, and with the gaseous scavenger. After that, I grabbed a quick snack before leaving the compound. I returned to the Legate, having finished the entire game using only the dressed cane. Well, that was fun. It's so nice when you side with the Legion, mainly because the general boss fight is pretty unique. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like, a comment and subscribe. I'm Laniustron. Until next time.
Quest to continue westward unopposed for a time. The Legion will swell with the number of slaves we will claim from this place, and the tribute we gather will fund